Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am your external speaker. Which is why I'm dressed as I am this morning. I hope you like the suit. Frankly, I find it a little difficult to be sitting in a room with, or standing in a room with all of you and not having something around my neck. So, although I am your external speaker, will you excuse me if I just take this, because it makes me feel a little bit more at home. It is such a pleasure to be with you today and to be reflecting on Scouting in 2017. Yesterday, our Secretary General provided us with some really, I think, fascinating challenges. Don't you? I thought that he really questioned us. And for me, the most interesting question, Ahmed, came towards the end, when you said to everybody, how many of you are involved in creating the national policy of your country in terms of youth and education? And very few of us were able to put our hands up. That has to change. That has to change. For the last 6 years, as Secretary General of another organisation, I have had the extraordinary privilege to be able to look at Scouting through a different lens from the one that I have normally looked at it through. And what I'm going to talk about this morning is examining Scouting through a number of different lenses. And maybe the way in which we look at Scouting might help us to communicate what we really do to policymakers in our various countries. Because, you see, in many of our countries, this is what people think Scouting is about. I don't think that that is a picture of the planning team of the Congress. Although I can see Stephen Peck on the front row. But unfortunately, too often, that's what people think Scouting is. And we know that's not true, don't we? Scouting was created for a different age. But the extraordinary thing about our world movement is that it has managed to evolve and meet the needs of young people as the world has changed. Scouting was created in the industrial manufacturing age in the West. Scouting was created originally by an extraordinary man who had an extraordinary vision. But we have moved through a number of different spaces over the last 100 and more years. And the world is so different from the world that Baden-Powell envisaged. We've gone from the manufacturing age through an age of knowledge. In the last 20 years, we have been through digital revolution. But now I think we are in a different space completely. And it's one that we have never yet charted. And that is something that many people are calling the social age. Our young people naturally have the skills to use digital technology. but they're using it in a way that we could not possibly have even dreamt of just 10 years ago. And in Scouting, our responsibility is to help them to live within the social age in a responsible way so that they can grow to become great citizens. So, this is what we are now. This is 2017. Actually, this is 2016. Does anybody recognize it? Elise, where are you? Do you recognize it? This is Rover Way in Paris, at Yonville. A gathering last summer of young people that was possibly the most exciting event that I have ever been to in Scouting. Not because there were hundreds of thousands of people there, but because those young people were gathered together and talking about issues and talking about what it means to be a scout in a way that I have never heard before. And Scoutisme Français did the most magnificent job in facilitating an amazing experience for young people. When I was preparing for this morning, I wanted to think about what it's like to be 14 years old again, which for me is more difficult than for some of you. So I spoke to a number of my friends, and I asked them if they would contact some scouts in their country. And I was able to collect testimonies from more than 36 14-year-olds from a variety of countries. And we asked them a simple question. What does it mean to you to be a scout today? And they came back with the most extraordinary answers. Every single one was slightly different, had a perspective that was amazing, but they all had different views about what made Scouting special. And it reminded me of the importance of the diversity of our movement worldwide. You see, in my private view, good Scouting looks different wherever you find it. Sadly, bad Scouting often looks the same. These young people are the representatives of great Scouting. And this morning what I want to do with you is share with you some of their stories and some of their impressions of what Scouting means in 2017. But let's pull back just for a moment. And let's just consider that conversation that you want to have with the policymakers in your country about those boys and girls and the difference that Scouting makes to them. Let's pull back and let's consider the position of non-formal education today. Because we have an opportunity, quite a small window, but we have an opportunity in the next few months and maybe years to change the way that non-formal education is perceived around the world. I told you that I have the privilege of being able to look at Scouting through a different lens. I also have the privilege of being able to spend my working day with education and youth ministers around the world. And the conversations that we have, even in the last 3 or 4 years, have been changing. When I started trying to explain the importance of non-formal education to education ministers in countries in sub-Saharan Africa, in Europe, in the Asia Pacific, in the Americas, in each of our regions. When I started that conversation, their response was, yeah, it's very nice, but we have to concentrate on reading and writing and arithmetic and a little basic science. There isn't space in our budget or our agenda for the little things that you do. So I would nod, and I would leave the room, and I would say to myself, they're wrong, but I must be patient. In the last 18 months to 2 years, the conversation has been very different. Firstly, I have not had to ask for an interview with ministers. They have been phoning me, which is very nice. Secondly, they've been saying something that I think is really fascinating. They've been saying this: we have been concentrating in our schools on reading and writing and arithmetic and a little basic science. And our kids are better academically prepared than ever before. But John, there is a problem. They don't know how to work in teams. They're leaving school without the skills and behaviors and attitudes that we need for our country. And I pause, and I smile, and I say, yes, your predecessor told me that you were focusing on these things, Minister. Do you know there is this thing called non-formal education? And this is how I describe it to them. This work, and I will let you have a copy of this, the slide afterwards. This is the work of an amazing scout and his team. This is the work of Georges Metz of Luxembourg. Georges has led work on developing and identifying the importance of non-formal education for maybe 25 years. And this simple grid he uses to describe to policymakers where non-formal education sits. So here, in formalized activities, in school context, is what most people think education is. Here, in the light blue, are the things that young people do on their own. They play with their friends, they organize things for themselves, they have hobbies, they talk to their parents, they talk to their grandparents, and learning goes on there too. I would describe that as informal learning. But in the middle, there's this bit. All this. This is non-formal education. This is scouting. And without it, young people will not be prepared to become successful adults. We are vital in this organisation and this movement, and all the other youth organisations as well. We are vital to the success of the next generation. Because we are preparing young people not with knowledge, but with skills and values and the behaviours that they need to be successful adults. Steve said that I have run a number of organisations. I used to be a teacher. And when I was learning to be a teacher, I was encouraged to concentrate on a little bit of reading, a little bit of writing, a little bit of arithmetic, and a little bit of basic science. And in English, for some strange reason, those are described as the 3 R's. Well, I understand reading begins with an R, but I really struggle with the idea that writing and arithmetic might begin with an R as well. But nevertheless, because the English are a special race, those are known as the 3 R's. Well, today I've got some more R's for you, and I think they're a bit more important. Let me introduce you to Nehon. So the first R I have to tell you about is roots. Because I believe that young people need roots to grow and they need wings to fly. And the roots that we can give them in Scouting are the roots of value. The roots of a very simple act of making a Scout promise. Being a Scout is an example for one another. It taught me how to be me with no shame. It helped me to be kind, generous, calm, and polite. 14 years old, Ethiopia. I want some education ministers to listen to him. Our values at the core of Scouting are things that we need to hold on to hard and firm. They're the values that set an agenda for the next generation. So that's roots. Next, let's go to Japan. Mari, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Ayaka? Ayaka. 14 years old. I try to look wider than usual, because if somebody is in trouble, I can help them out, and it will also help me avoid the danger in the forest. Well, do you know, in this digital world, I think we have a particular role to play in Scouting. In the village that I grew up, in rural England, there is a beautiful hill. And as children, my mother would push my brother and me out of the door at about 8:30 in the morning, and she would say to us, "Go and play, come back in the evening." And I'm sure that you will have had similar experiences. Well, we used to go to this hill, and we used to run down the hill, and we used to sail little model boats on the river that was at the bottom of the hill. Nobody talked to us about health and safety. And we had the most idyllic childhood. And we learnt that if you run too fast down a hill, you fall over. And we learnt that if you run really fast down a hill and you fall over, you hurt your knees. And we learnt really simple things. And we learnt how to take risks. Today, in many, many countries, our young people don't know how to take risks. Their mums and dads drive them from activity to activity in 4x4 vehicles, and they go on something that I had never heard of called a play date. I have no idea what one is, but young parents tell me they're very important. Our young people are increasingly wrapped in cotton wool, and they don't learn how to take risks and learn from their mistakes. But in Scouting, they do. We encourage young people to find things for themselves, to do things, to fall over, to learn together. We are vital because there is a generation of young people who do not understand the concept of managing risk. So there's another R to learn. This is Benoit. He's a year older. He is therefore much wiser. He is also from France, and consequently he speaks French. So I don't really understand any of the words on there. Of course, what he says is so important. To paraphrase, it's all about the team. It's all about the team. That's more important for the group. Creating that sense of unity amongst each other. Confronting problems together. Finding the answers together. That's what we do with the patrol system. And it's what, of course, when you're an adult, you learn that you have to do in real life. The relationships that we help young people to create in Scouting truly equip them for life. And it's not just the relationships between young people of the same age. We are an extraordinary organisation because we, as Scout leaders, may be the very first adults that a child has chosen to be a leader for them. They cannot choose their parents, they cannot choose their teachers, but they can choose us. And they do, in their millions around the world. That gives us a very special responsibility. And it's one that is vital to the future of the world. Okay, 2 more. Because 3 R's is not enough. This is Mirial, 14 years old, Jordan. Scouts is like a book containing endless pages that holds love, intelligence, cooperation, problems, and difficulties. I wish I could have written that when I was 14. But you know, what Scouting teaches young people is to fall over and get up again. When you lose your way with a compass and then you find your place on that map again, you feel like you are 1,000,000 feet tall. Scouting provides some very, very special skills. And we could all find our own stories of how Scouting has made us stronger. And the final R, maybe the most important R, maybe the R that you most need to communicate to policymakers in your country. It's that one. We are more relevant than ever. We can help nations build. And we are doing so, sadly too quietly, every single day. This is James from Australia. Being part of Greenbank Scout Group is like having a huge family who are always there to help each other whenever we can. James lives in a part of Australia that has recently been overcome by flooding. And it was the local scout group, of course, that got people out of their homes, saved their belongings, got people to high ground. That service to the community, those simple acts that we all do in all our countries, position Scouting firmly at the centre of the community and makes us more relevant than others. So, 5 new R's to share. When talking about relevance, I could not avoid sharing with you just one extra photograph. Ahmed talked about this young woman yesterday. And because I am not speaking on behalf of Scouting, I can be a little less careful with my words than the Secretary General was yesterday. Although the Secretary General is possibly the bravest Secretary General I have yet met. This young woman did an extraordinary thing. She and her friends, having learnt the 5 R's, decided that they wanted to take action, and they wanted to take action as scouts. For me, that shows extraordinary bravery. And it shows extraordinary commitment to Scouting values. The idea that anybody would choose to criticize Lucy, this brave young woman, standing up for her Scouting values, the idea that anybody would criticize her personally, I find deeply, deeply disturbing. We can argue about how Scouting should be perceived. But let me tell you, this simple photograph has told education and youth ministers around the world more about the values of Scouting than anything else in the last 10 years. Respect to Lucy. Respect to Lucy. So what are the outcomes that people are looking for from young people today in this social age? Well, I've written them up on the screen. And these are outcomes of non-formal education. They are not specifically outcomes of Scouting. But I think you will agree with me that all of those come through our programs. What is so clever is that you can make links from those outcomes to societal impact. And that's when education ministers and youth ministers get really excited. So because these are generic, because these are not Scouting specific, we can use the academic research of many, many different organizations to make links. And we can show that non-formal education has an impact on society in a whole range of different areas. And I could add to that now the list of the Sustainable Development Goals, and I could find a whole lot of other ones as well. And what's exciting is that WSEC is working very, very hard now on impact research to be able to prove the story of Scouting, just as other organizations are as well. Because if we tell a youth minister or an education minister or a justice minister that an investment in Scouting or an investment in other non-formal organizations that we won't mention right now can lead to reduced reoffending. So later you don't have to spend money on your prison service. Or that the environment will improve as a result. Or that increased participation in civic life will lead to young people not being radicalized. Well then, it's an investment that is really worth making. Our challenge, of course, is not so much to attract young people to this amazing game, because you've heard that those 14-year-olds already know how great it is. It's about attracting the right adults. And so, as I draw to a conclusion, I want to show you a little film that was created not for Scouting, I'm afraid, but for another nameless organisation, to tell adults, particularly teachers, why non-formal education is so important.
I'm thrilled to be speaking to you here today, on a day that celebrates all of your hard work, your successes and achievements.
I can confidently say that in front of me is a group of young people who, in the process of becoming better versions of themselves, taught me I can be more than a teacher. By being an award leader, I can be your mentor.
From you, I have learned people are filled with the potential for boundless energy, immeasurable passion, the deepest wells of resilience, and enormous capacity for growth and change.
I've realised that every individual can change the world around them and positively impact their communities in meaningful ways.
Through you, I have witnessed the power of patience and the pride and joy that comes from discovering a new skill, testing your physical and emotional limits, and connecting with the people around you.
I've seen that in every challenge we endure, every step we take, every test we face,
Is the startling truth that what might appear impossible is actually achievable.
And today, I can proudly say to you, celebrate your achievements. They are a fleeting culmination of
the hard work, determination, and perseverance you have shown to achieve an award. I hope that the award has helped you discover the world you live in and has given you inspiration to continue to challenge yourself.
believe in action, believe in your ideas,
Believe in others, and most importantly,
Believe
in
in
yourself.
Yes, education ministers, not all learning happens in the classroom. It happens in the fields, it happens in the scout halls, it happens on a Friday evening when it's raining, or when, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of an English Friday evening now. It happens every day because of people like you, people like us. People like them. Some of you may know of the amazing cellist, Pablo Casals. He was also the most extraordinary poet. And I want to finish today by reading you something written by him. He could have chosen perhaps more appropriate, diverse role models. And when I read out his list, you'll see what I mean. But he was writing maybe 30, 40, maybe even 50 years ago. So I'm prepared to forgive him. But education and youth ministers around the world, listen to these words. Each second we live is a new and unique moment of the universe. A moment that never was before and never will be again. And what do we teach our children in school? We teach them that 2 and 2 make 4, and that Paris is the capital of France? When will we also teach them what they are? We should say to each of them, do you know what you are? You are a marvel. You are unique. In all of the world, there is no other child exactly like you. In the millions of years that have passed, there has never been a child like you. And look at your body. What a wonder it is. Your legs, your arms, your cunning fingers, the way you move. You may become a Shakespeare, a Michelangelo, a Beethoven. You have the capacity for anything. Yes, you are a marvel. And when you grow up, can you then harm another who is, like you, a marvel? You must cherish one another. We must all work to make this world worthy of its children. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, John May. Thank you very much, John, and thank you everybody. Have a great day. Let's go and create a better world.